We are now joined by the two chairmen. Howard Dean ran for president and ran the Democratic Party. He also served as governor. Michael Steele ran the Republican National Committee and also served as lieutenant governor of Maryland. Thanks to both of you for having this conversation.
Hey, good to be with you, Ari.
Appreciate it. Michael Steele, as you know, they say there's no party like a national party because a national party don't stop, or they say something like that. Yeah. And here is here's a party that you used to run. I know you care about a traditional conservatism as well as patriotism. Viewers have heard that you preferred Biden over Trump in the last election, but what do you do when the lies won't stop and a larger share of the party's rank and file members, and particularly its most vocal activists, are lining up with these lies?
Yeah, that's the challenge. I mean, how do you turn that corner? You know, how do you bust through that den of lies to sort of, expose it for what it is and to pull out, save as many people as you can from them? It's hard. And in the past, we would always look to our leaders to do that. We would look at the majority or the minority leader of our party in the Senate, or the Speaker of the House, or the minority leader of our party in the House, to be that voice to sort of pull us away from the tip of crazy. But they're the ones who are leading the charge. So it's harder now because they've become spineless. Mitch McConnell knows damn well that what he said was a load of you-know-what, talking about, well, when I look at this, I don't see any need for it. Right. Did you say that when you guys were investigating Benghazi for untold millions, 33,000 times? No, you thought there was something legitimate there and you went after it. This ain't Benghazi. It's worse. It's 10 times worse. It impacts the entire country in a way. And you sit there going, well, there's no there. It's not credible. It's not believable. So when you ask the question, how do you pull people away from that inside the throes of it, it's hard to do when the leadership are the ones who are perpetuating. It is beyond Trump at this point, Ari. It is now systemically a part of the narrative that is infused and reused by our leadership. And that is a harder nut to crack.
Yeah, and you said narrative. I wonder whether it's congealing into the orthodoxy. I wonder, Governor Dean, whether it's becoming, like a type of absurd and dangerous litmus test where people have to lie about someone else's loss. I mean, that's what's really wild about this, Governor, is Republicans who did win office with whatever their own strategy was have to run around and lie about a different politician's loss to maintain their standing. And so it's Baroque. It's a joke. I do want to play some of the joke of it with the way the late night folks have been going at the amateur audits, but also get your response. Let's look at this and hear from you on the other side.
Nowhere have Republicans held on to the big lie more fervently than the great state of Arizona.
It feels like this con is never going to end.
Now, it's easy to dismiss this Arizona audits, but there's at least one person who's pretty sure that it's going to put Donald Trump back in power. And you'll never guess who that person is.
What other genius ideas do they have? Only the real ballots will float, so let's throw them in the river. If they sink, it's fraud. I mean, what's next? They feed the real ballots to a bunch of chickens and then incinerate the chickens? Oh, that is next? Wow, I'm getting good at this.
Governor?
That actually is a critical way to fight back against this. We are watching something that we haven't seen for a long time in this country, but it happens in many democracies, and it's the weak point of democracies. When one side figures out how to use democracy to undermine democracy. So what these folks are doing essentially is what Hitler did. It's what Viktor Orban did in Hungary. It's what Kaczynski is doing in Poland. Democracy dies because you no longer care about democracy. The Republicans have no commitment to democracy at this point. There are very few that do. Kinzinger is somebody who's standing up. Liz Cheney stood up for what was right. But most of them are running around subservient to somebody who never cared about democracy, and that's Donald Trump. So this is a really critical, this next few years is going to determine whether the United States survives as the cradle of democracy.
Yeah, and Michael Steele, I mean, to the governor's point, although different dictators had different agendas, so I don't think there's equivalence on what they did. But you certainly have, throughout world history, places where elections occurred and they were largely normal, and then they gave way to the end of elections. Or sham elections like what you have. People know what you have in Russia. They have a thing they call an election, but it's not one. And so, Michael, when you look at that and you see, I want to read something that's quite hot, but I want to read it for your analysis. And if you think it goes too far, let us know. Sure. But a political writer, Jonathan Chait, I'm sure you know him, he argues that at this point, the Republican mainstream is refusing to talk about January 6th and the commission investigation we showed, not because it's too weak to be taken seriously, but because it's too strong. In the red states, he writes, quote, Republicans are laying the groundwork to make the next insurrection easier. Michael.
I can't find a lot of fault with that statement. And the reason for that is I just look at the election bills that are being passed. I look at the fact that Donald Trump says, I will be reinstalled in August, and no one in leadership said, shut the hell up and sit down. No one said that. They're quiet on it. The fact that you have the January 6th commission playing out the way it did. When you again, I keep going back to this, probably the most painful sights during that whole conversation was watching Brian Sicknick's mother go door to door asking members to vote to inquire about her son, and they basically said no. Well, they didn't basically, they did, said no. So what is that the foundation of now? It's the foundation of something. I mean, what do you think happens next? Where do we go from here? If you won't shut up, the guy in Florida saying he's going to be reinstalled in August, if you've got two numbnuts running around between Florida and Georgia and Gates and Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about they run the party, they're now the leaders of the party. You've got, the silence from the actual leadership or the complicity by someone like McCarthy by kicking out Liz Cheney. What do you think comes next? I mean, it's not a whole big leap. So Jonathan's got a good point. And it is a red flag because this is a setup for something. And we need to be prepared for whatever that something is as citizens.
Governor Dean?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, so what's the way out of this? The way out of this is young people who aren't going to take this. I mean, my view of this is actually I end up being optimistic. And the reason I do is I think the Republicans have already lost this. The reason they are abandoning democracy is because they have no choice. They can't win in a democracy. And this is not going to go away. These folks are going to get old and die soon. I mean, look at how old these people are that are carrying on like this for the most part. Young people, people of color have the Black Lives Matter movement, which the Republicans are terrified about and saying all kinds of terrible things. The thing that was so amazing when Ta-Nehisi Coates said he was an optimist, because he was not a guy who's given to optimism, because he, for the first time since I've been alive, because I can remember back in the 60s what this was like, white kids and black kids were out there together in equal numbers demanding justice. And that is what the real future of this country is. So I am optimistic in the long run because these fascists are going to die off. The Republicans are going to be restored. I think there's a good debate to be had between conservatives and liberals. I think it's a good thing to have conservatives in the government who are reminding us that we can't just spend money and print money all the time. I do not think it's a good thing to have conservatives who don't believe in democracy in the government. These people are not conservatives. They're neo-fascists. And that is the fact.